The trial within a trial in the attempted murder case of alleged criminal kingpin Vusimuzi Cat Matlala and 4 co-accused continues at the High Court in Johannesburg today.
Matlala is accused of orchestrating the failed assassinations of taxi boss Joe Sibanyoni, his former girlfriend Tebogo Thobejane, and music producer Seunkie Mokubung, popularly known as DJ Vettys.
Matlala, his wife Tsakane, alleged hitmen Musa, Kekana and Tiego Mabusela, together with Ntabiseng Nzama, face 25 charges linked to the 3 botched hits between August 2022 and January 2024. All right, as we saw, of course, a lot of focus on this particular story. Now, another turn in this particular matter, and this is the trial within a trial now. And Musa Kekana there, as you can see him, accused number 1. There has been quite a lot of focus on his arrest in particular, and it's the first time, in fact, it was the first time last week that we got to see his face, on camera. And he is, of course, there in court, sitting alongside Vusimuzi Cat Matlala and the other co-accused, and a lot of focus on what would have happened then, especially last week when we were listening to the developments there at that Centurion Golf Estate around the shooting, the night, of the shooting of Joe Sibanyoni. So a bit of focus on that as well last week, with one security guard, coming forward to talk about his own version of events. But of course, we know the holes that were then poked on that particular story. So someone who's been tracking this for us is Neria Hlakotsa. She's back with us this evening to give us a sense of what exactly happened here. Neria, good evening to you once again. Thank you so much for coming through. So now we've turned from, probing to a trial within a trial. What's going on?
Good evening to you, Bonyu, and thank you so much for having me. So right now we are in a trial within a trial, and mainly because accused number 1 in the matter, Musa Kekana, is objecting to the state using some of the evidence that it obtained when he was arrested. Remember, Kekana is the alleged gunman in this issue, and the state he was initially arrested in 2024. But this arrest had nothing to do with what brings us to court now. This was the arrest related to the murder of Aman Swart. If you remember him, he was a Vereeniging-based engineer. And at the time, he was being arrested for murder. However, it was during the same arrest that the state then found firearms in a car that he was driving. And those firearms are then linking him to these cases that we have now, to the shooting of Joe Sibanyoni and the shooting of Seunkie Mokubung. So it's important for the state right now to be allowed to include that evidence into court, because it is that evidence that they are relying heavily on to put accused number 1 into this case.
So how have the arguments fared then, as far as that is concerned?
Well, look, we saw the state bringing its first witness for this trial within a trial. And the first witness essentially was a private security who was asked by the police to look out for a white Hyundai. And that white Hyundai was involved possibly in a murder, a Vereeniging-based murder. And when he then looked out for that car, he finally spotted it and called police. And he tells the court that the driver of the white Hyundai was Musa Kekana, who is accused number 1 in the matter. So now what is in dispute from Kekana's lawyers is that Musa was not the driver of the car. And that car is important. And the driver of that car is important because then those firearms were found in that same car. So Musa Kekana's lawyer this morning basically disputing that he was the driver. And among other things also, the state's witness had told us that Musa at the time of the arrest had blood on his T-shirt, to the top that he was wearing. And this is another dispute that Musa Kekana's counsel is bringing to the court. Of course, the defense is challenging all of this right now because they have to make sure that their client is not seen to have blood on the day when he was being accused of murder. Number 2, he was not seen as the driver of the car that had those pistols that were involved in the shooting of Seunkie Mokubung and Joe Sibanyoni. But also, Bonyiwe, the state has since then now brought another police officer who was involved in the arrest of Kekana. Kekana is also arguing within this trial, in a trial within a trial, that he doesn't want the state to use the utterances that he made during that arrest. So the state has brought in another police officer right now, basically just to show that he was read his rights. He was told that he can remain silent, but he chose to speak. So it remains to be seen really, what did he say that is so incriminating against him that he doesn't even want it to make it to the court of law.
And it's quite interesting. So now what happens in terms of the processes, especially because you've got his lawyers now that are trying to put up this fight, and at the same time you've got the state as well that's trying to make sure that whatever evidence they're relying on, it gets to be put before the court.
Yeah, it's a tough one. So after all this, the state is expected to at least this witness that is here now, the state is still examining him, and then obviously the court then has to take the final decision whether this evidence can be used in court, and then we'll go back to the main trial. At this point, the main trial has paused completely until the court rules in this instance whether the state can rely on that evidence. And we all know right now the state needs that gun that is in that Hyundai so that it can link it. So it does need this evidence to be put in court.
Sure, quite interesting developments, Neria. Thank you so much as always for putting us in the picture there. Our colleague SABC News reporter Neria Hlakotsa, who's been tracking the developments there in the Matlala murder trial there for us.